Hi, this is Mitch Mitchell of TT Mitchell Consulting. Today is the 13th anniversary of TT Mitchell Consulting. Not TT Mitchell Consulting Incorporated. I was incorporated in 2006, so that's a different date. But in 2001, on this date, I went down to the city of Syracuse and I paid for a business license under that name. So here I am, 13 years. And it's been an interesting ride. It's been sometimes a tough ride. Sometimes it's been a glorious ride. This thing I'm doing right now, for instance, it's kind of in the middle. It's interesting being in the South. It's interesting with all the flying I'm doing because this is really the longest gig I've had that's been a flying gig. I had one other. It lasted a very short period of time. And this one has been better than that one was by a long shot, even though I made a ton more money with that other one. But this one has definitely been wonderful. And I've learned a lot of different things, both on leadership and business. On the blog post that went live earlier today, I tackled leadership because every year, for at least the last 4 years, I've written a blog post on the anniversary date. And last year, I said I was going to write some business tips, but actually I said I was going to write some leadership tips last year, but I only really wrote 3. And when I looked at them later on, I said, well, geez, these could have been basically motivational or life tips. They weren't necessarily leadership. So I decided to do leadership on the blog, and I'm going to link to that here in case anyone actually watches this at some point later on and decides, hey, let's go see what those others are. And I'm going to end up putting this video on that post later on because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to basically put as much media into certain posts as you can to try to corner a market. So here, this is going to be a little longer than the others have been this month. This is also day number 24 in a row for a video on the business channel. These are actual business lessons that I've learned and business tips of some type that I hope help people who are just trying to decide if they want to go into business for themselves or maybe they're new. I'm sure people who've been in business as long or at least, heck, just 5 years have learned some of these, but you just never know. So here we go. The first one is don't let your work define who you are. There's so many people I meet who, so what do you do? Well, I'm director of this, whatever. And they see that's exactly who they are. And I could sit here and say, well, I'm a consultant. That doesn't really define anything to anybody. I'm a healthcare finance consultant. A lot of people have no clue what that is. I'm a leadership trainer. People don't really know what that is. Now, I could sit there and think, well, you know what, I'm this leadership guy, so I should know every single thing about it, or I've been in business for 13 years, I should know everything about it, or healthcare finance, I should know everything about it. 1, I don't, but 2, those things really don't define who I am. What defines who I am? My morals, my personality, how I treat others. Am I trustworthy? Do I give respect? Do I get any respect? That's more who I am. How I am with my family. Now it's just my wife and my mother. Okay, I got some cousins and some, uncles and aunts. I don't know a lot of people, but, I've got other people. But, the close family, my wife and my mother. And those are people who help to define who you are. So think about that. It may not seem like a business tip, but it really is because some people get so caught up in the business thing that they forget other stuff. I was watching a video earlier today of a friend of mine locally who I guess she had a problem that was related to the fact that she was working way too hard and it put her in the hospital. Don't do that, folks. The second thing is don't take yourself too seriously. If you've seen any of these other videos, I really don't take myself overly seriously. I take myself more serious than a lot of people wish I did, but in general, I'm kind of a, happy-go-lucky kind of guy. I let things go. I like to laugh. It doesn't look like it in pictures. People say that all the time. How come you don't smile when you take pictures of yourself? Because it's hard to smile with a selfie. I don't know how women do it, but I can't do it all that well. But, really don't take yourself too seriously. I am legally the president and CEO of my corporation. But I can't go around saying to people I am the president and CEO of my corporation because it seems kind of pompous. And, so I use that sparingly. But we all know I'm the president and CEO of my organization. Number 3, sometimes you have to let the money go for a principle. I have done that a few times. I have basically left a couple of people who I had contracted with because the money just wasn't worth it. I have turned down some things because I didn't feel that it was ethically responsible for me to take those things. And those were my own ethics. You know, if you get into the game where you will do anything for money and money is your only driver, it's going to lead you to a place where you're going to do things you hate, and then you're going to start hating yourself. You know, you don't see people who are really, really rich who do things that aren't proper living a nice, comfortable life. They're always worried that someone is looking over their shoulder and is going to catch them doing something wrong. So, you know, it's really not worth it. It's not always about the money. Just like for employees, it's not always about the money for them. It's about other things. So you have to keep that in mind. Yes, you need to make the money. You need to charge probably more than you probably are charging now. I'll tell you that, because you have to live. But when all is said and done, it can't always be about the money. Number 4, everyone you meet is a potential business connection, but don't overthink it. You know, when I was first in business for myself, I went out and I got all these business cards, and I would go to all these networking events and I would hand out all these cards, and people would hand me all these cards, and I would go home and get to the computer and I would type in all these names and categorize all these people and all this stuff. And then after a couple of years, I realized that most of those people I've never seen again. Most of those people, I can never use their services. Most of those people aren't going to use my service. So I got out of the handing out cards all the time game. What I got more into was talking to people. And we talk about what they did. I talk a little bit about what I did. We talk about Syracuse University stuff, because if you live in Syracuse, for the most part, if you talk about Syracuse sports, you're probably going to do pretty well. If I talk to people in the actual hometown I live in, which is Liverpool, New York, if we talk about the lake, and we can talk about, well, we don't talk about friendlies anymore, but, you know, we talk about Wagner. We can talk about different things, and now you're a person. And you never know who other people are going to meet, who they may say, hey, you know what, I can recommend this guy. You should call him or talk to him. So that's what I'm saying. Everyone is a potential business connection, but don't overdo it. Don't press the flesh. Don't really get pushy. Don't get pushy at all, as a matter of fact. But every once in a while, if you make a connection, you can say, hey, can I call you? Maybe can we meet for lunch? Lunch is my thing. I am not a coffee drinker, and I don't like to get up early in the morning. So don't ask me, can we have coffee in the morning for breakfast? Because no, we can't have coffee in the morning for breakfast. Now, if you find the best hot chocolate in the world, I may come show up. But not many places have good hot chocolate. Certainly not enough for me to wake up early in the morning. I'm just saying it. Number 5, find people you can talk to on a business level, whether they're in the same field or not, and never be afraid to ask for help. You know, when I was new, I got hold of a copy of the Syracuse Chamber. It's not called that anymore right now, but you know, that's what I'm calling it. I got a hold of their directory, and it had all these different people in it for all these different businesses, this nice thick thing. And so I took it home and I went through it, and I decided I wanted to call people who were all consultants, just consultants. Some of them, it said what they did, but some of it just said consulting. And I called all of the folks who were on the list. There were about 13 of them or so. And none of them except one guy would talk to me. I wasn't even in the same field as any of those people, but they wouldn't talk to me. And one guy even came out and said, well, you could end up being a potential competitor for money that they can only go one direction. And so I can't, you know, I don't want to divulge anything. I thought, wow, this is really? Now, the one guy who did talk to me, guy named Steve Reynolds, and I'm going to mention him. You know, he's never going to see this, and probably anyone who knows him isn't going to see it. But, you know, he was a member of an organization that I'm now a member of, and I'm on the board, called the Professional Consultants Association of Central New York. And he invited me to come to a meeting, and I'd never heard of these guys, so I went to the meeting, and it was great. I got to meet a whole bunch of independent consultants who were basically trying to work on their businesses. A lot of these guys were older than me at the time, and they'd all been through what I was going through then. And we still have these meetings, although I've been on the road and I've missed a lot. But, you know, you talk about marketing, and you talk about sales letters, and you talk about finding other people to do certain things so that you don't have to do them, so that you can concentrate on your business. It's fantastic stuff. It's great having networking groups of people who do something similar, even if they do the same thing. I am the local president of a medical billing organization that's part of a national medical billing organization. And all of us come together, we have our meetings that talk about medical billing issues. And it's not always just medical billing, but in general, that's what it's for. So it helps to have other people who you can communicate with. And trust me, if you're working out of your home, it's a lonely thing. Even if you're sitting at home all day long making phone calls to people you don't know, that's pretty lonely. So it's nice having some other people. You might get lucky and get a kind of a little networking group, a mastermind group of people who are all independent businesses that maybe you meet with once a week or once every couple of weeks somewhere. And you just discuss business stuff. Okay, I got to do this. So this shows you I can't take myself too serious. I had an itch. Got to go for the itch. Number 6, always give your best effort, because once the word gets out that you don't, it's hard to overcome that stigma. I say that to everybody. You know what? We had a guy who came to the house, and I was out of town. My wife was home. And, she was looking for someone to do a couple of things on the house. And he did them, and I guess he did them okay, but she wasn't overly satisfied. And she knew someone who knew him. As a matter of fact, this woman had recommended him. And the conversation came up later on where this guy said, well, geez, I'd hoped she would give me more money than she gave. And my wife said, well, I asked him how much, and that's what he said he was going to charge. What more money did he want? And he didn't do the best job, because even though he told my wife what the price was, he felt he should have gotten more. Well, that's his fault. But that's not the point. No matter what it is that you do, no matter how much money, if you're in business for yourself and you don't give the best, then word's going to get out about you, especially if you live in, I'll say, a small community. Okay, Syracuse area has got 250,000 people overall in the county. But if you don't give your best or you irritate people, everyone's going to know. Okay, I got to do this again. Number 7, always make sure to charge enough to get the client to think about hiring you, and enough that you can live on. A friend of mine used to go into every negotiation with a price that I thought was way too low and immediately start discounting it. And she was wondering how come she never seemed to have enough money to take care of all her bills, and how come she hated all the projects she worked on. Well, one of the things that's hard for people to get a mindset of when they go into business for themselves is that you can't charge job wages. If you were making $25 an hour and now you're working for yourself, you can't charge $25 an hour anymore. You probably had insurance somewhere. Insurance costs a heck of a lot more than you thought it did way back when. And now you can get insurance with the Affordable Care Act, because I can. And my wife and I have this insurance plan. And it's actually cheaper than the one was when she was still working and I was under her insurance. It's a lot cheaper than that, and we have pretty good benefits. But the thing is that you now have to cover all of that. You have to pay your own taxes. You have to still buy all the same stuff. You now have to chart your expenses. You have to keep track of all these things. Sometimes you might have to hire other people. Like I hired an accountant, and I hired someone to cut my grass so that I could do other things. And I'm thinking about some other stuff eventually when I'm back home. But you have to charge more. What happens, especially if you're a solo, is that you could go months between gigs. And so you need money to sustain you so that you have time to do these other things. So you have to charge enough. You can't overcharge people. You can't be the one charging $200 an hour for something where everyone else is charging $75. Maybe you can in some circumstances. There's a guy named Derek Halpern who was doing the video about a guy who charges $350 for a haircut. $350 for a haircut, and he gets it. So, but he didn't walk into business getting $350 a haircut. He had to go through all kinds of stuff and develop that kind of thing. And if you develop yourself, you can get more money. But you need to make sure that you're getting enough, that you're being treated fair, and that it's enough that you're comfortable with it and really can live off of it. Now, if you're one of those people who has multiple clients at one time, then maybe you can alter that and you will still live well. For me, most of the time, I can only handle one client at a time. Obviously, if I'm traveling, I can basically really only handle one client at a time. So that's number 7. Number 8. Wow, I don't know why I'm itching so much. The customers aren't always right, but they're always the customer, so you have to treat them fair. I did a video, I think either yesterday or the day before, where I talked about someone when years ago, where the guy kept calling up and he was cussing and whatever, and I kept hanging up on him until he behaved better. And then I was able to take care of him. Well, truth of the matter is that when you work for yourself, you may end up with some of the same type of people. I can't say that I've had anyone where I've done work for them and they've called me up and they've been mad at anything I've done. I have not had anything like that. And so that's always pretty good. But I have had some clients who have wanted me to do things for them that I said, I don't know that that's ethical, or I don't know if that's legal. I don't know that I want to get caught in that, whatever. And sometimes people think, well, they can just throw money at you, or they're throwing money at you, you should do whatever they want to. No, ain't gonna happen. Especially now that I'm incorporated. You know what? That's my name on the business. That's I paid all that money for that incorporation thing. No, it's just not going to happen. You have to not bend your morals for someone else's principles. So, customer's not always right, but they are the customer. So you handle it well. You don't, get into cussing them out. I've known people who have done that, and then they wonder how come they can't get any more business. Really? Here's a reality. People who are mad are going to tell a heck of a lot more people what you did than people who are happy. Learn that one. Ingrain it in your brain and learn how to modify your thinking. Number 9, sometimes doing something for free could earn you more money in the long run. And basically what this one says is that if you're brand new and you need someone to do something for, and you can use that person later on to help recommend you for other things, you can get them to write you a letter. There's nothing wrong with doing something for free. We all have to get that first step. And okay, I didn't do it for free. When I first got out, I didn't do any of that initial stuff for free. However, during the time period where consulting was a little slow, this is when President Obama first got into office, and y'all knew how bad the economy was. And there was a tough period for consultants for a while there. I started writing for a living, but I had to show that I could write, so I did a few articles for free, just so people could see the kind of writer I was. And then I did some for very low pay, and at a certain point, I jacked the pay up. So that's a come in some circles. I tell people, you know what, I've probably got 4,800 articles, maybe close to 5,000 articles on the net. My name isn't on everything, but I did a lot of writing, and it made enough money so that I could pay bills. So that was an integral thing, but initially I had to start low. And even a couple of times I did free just so I could show people how that is. So sometimes you have to do that, but it can work out well on the back end, especially if you do a good job. Number 10, don't always sell. Sometimes you have to be a regular person. And when I was talking about those networking events earlier, I've met tons of people. I still meet people who think they have to always be selling. Especially, I hate to call it out, but I'm going to call it out, MLM people. They are always selling. They need to back it down just a little bit. And, they think that everyone is a potential salesperson for them, so they can get some of that residual money from someone else doing the sales. And you know what? Whether it's a good business model or not, I don't know. I have no opinion on that. Where I have my opinion is they're always selling. I invited a guy out to lunch one time who I'd met, and we were sitting there talking, and all of a sudden he pulls out all this stuff and he starts selling. And he's trying to show me this check. He says, look at this, I got this $25,000 check, and you can make a lot of money if you did stuff like this. And I said, well, goodness, if you can make that kind of money on your own, why do you need me? I knew the check was fake. And that's what I mean. You do that kind of thing, you lose people's respect. Think about a couple of businesses where your mindset is already kind of against them when they mention it. Used car salesman, insurance salesman. And it's not fair. But there have been a lot of people who started that way, and they just pounded you and pounded you and pounded you. And you couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't go to a bowling alley. You couldn't go to a ball game. You couldn't go to the store and run into those people and have a regular conversation. sell, sell, sell. Don't do that, because then you find people avoiding you and they start telling other people. It's hard to do business that way. What are we up to? Number 11. Never miss the opportunity. Let people know what you do. Don't be pushy. Now, I know I said earlier that you don't want to always be selling yourself, and you don't want to always be pushing your cart on the people. And that's true. But there's a lot of business networking things where people don't tell anyone else what it is they do. So people could walk away and say, boy, that Mitch was a nice guy. No clue what he does because we never got around to it. Well, business networking events are for people to business network, to get to know each other, to at least know a little bit about what they do. So, you have to do that. But don't just limit it to that. Every once in a while, you're at a party or you're at some kind of event or whatever, and you're talking with someone who maybe now you've got some kind of connection. It doesn't hurt at that moment to, wait for someone to ask, because they're going to ask, because you're going to ask someone, what do you do? And then eventually they're going to ask you back, because we're people who love, we know this reciprocal kind of thing. Well, geez, he asked me, now I got to ask him, I have to do it. If I buy you a milkshake, you got to buy me one later on. Of course, you have to buy me a milkshake first. But that's how life goes. So you have to make sure that people have some kind of idea what you do. And one of my problems, and I'll own up to this, is the fact that I do different things for different groups of people. So for most people, I tell them that I'm a leadership consultant, executive coach, and whatever. I don't tell a lot of people initially about the healthcare side because I do it for hospitals. It's not going to be anything that most people can use. I mention every once in a while that I'm a social media consultant because that's something I do through my other company called SEO Excellence. SEO Excellence, just in case someone wanted to go look that up. And I may mention that because someone may be talking about, I've got this new business here, but I don't understand any of this stuff. Oh, hey, this is what I do. I can have a conversation with you, give you some tips. I always give tips first. And if they want someone to do some of the work for them, there you go. So that's why you never miss those opportunities. You never know when you're going to run into someone who either can use your services or knows someone who might be able to use those services. Number 12, you be flexible in what you have to offer. So initially, I was only doing, well, I'll tell the truth. I was going to be leadership, period. That's all I was ever going to be. I had this background in healthcare all these years, all these skills, but I wasn't going to do any of that. I was going to do leadership and diversity. And that was going to be the thing. I wrote a book on leadership, which I've highlighted in some of my videos, Embrace the Lead. And that's totally where I was going to go. But the first gig I got was in healthcare. The second gig I got, which was a speaking engagement, was in healthcare. The first training I got was in healthcare. Now, I did get speaking engagements mainly on leadership. I got a couple on healthcare, but mainly leadership. And that's where some of the traveling to do speaking has come from. But healthcare has been the thing that's kind of kept me there. And I mentioned the social media consultant thing because I gave a presentation on it, and a couple of people hired me after the presentation to do some work for them. Now, had I just stuck to this one thing, there's a possibility that maybe I'd be further along in that one thing, but you always keep your mind open for doing other things. As long as you have the skills. For instance, I'll just throw this out there. Something that I do for a couple of people who I've done it for years is I do their budgets for them. I actually have set people up on an allowance, and I've done their budgets when they've been in deep financial trouble. It's like, okay, let's sit down, let's look at this whole thing, and let's get you out of trouble. This is what I do. And I don't advertise that. I did for a very short period of time, but I've done that. I'm flexible because I have those kinds of skills. I can do budgeting. I do budgeting for myself. I've been doing budgeting for myself since the early 90s. So it's something I'm good at. A lot of you in business are good at more than one thing. So kind of be open because you never know when you're going to need it. And here's number 13. This is really the most important out of anything I tell you. And it may not seem like a business thing, but it really is. Take care of yourself first, because no one else will if you don't. Always take care of yourself first. Yes, you work for the clients. Yes, you're working to make money so you can take care of your bills and all this other kind of stuff. But you know what? You got to take care of yourself first. When I was first in business, and I mean the first bunch of years, I averaged working between 18 and 20 hours a day. I had that kind of energy. I slept very little. I was tired a lot, but I still had the energy. I was able to do all these things. And you know what? Eventually that catches up with you. Now, I will never be an 8-hour a night sleeper, but I have learned that every once in a while, when I'm working from home, I have to step away for maybe an hour. Or I have to say, you know what? It's Saturday afternoon, even if it's not Syracuse basketball or football season. It's a Saturday afternoon, or maybe it's a Sunday afternoon. Time to push away from the computer and go do something else. You have to do it. I like going out to dinner with my wife when we're both home. I like, I said, every once in a while, hey, let's just go for a drive, or let's go to the mall, or let's go wherever. Let's get out. I try to call, a few of my friends every once in a while, see if they want to go somewhere, if they just want to talk. I'm not very big on the phone, but, I'd rather meet someone at the park, or, we have Onondaga Lake Park, and I love to go for walks, and I love to meet people there so we can do the walk. And it's a beautiful location, and I like to do that. I go to the casino every once in a while. I do that down here. Otherwise, I'm in this hotel all the time. We have to learn to take care of ourselves. We need to learn how to treat ourselves a little better. One of the things that I started programming before I got this gig was planning my meals, because quite often I would get up and I wouldn't eat for 4 or 5 hours. I'm diabetic. You can't do that. You have to at least get into some structure. For me, I can't take medication until I eat. So now I have a little better structure. After I do this video, I'm doing it earlier than I've been doing some of the others, I'm going out to eat. And I'm going to, calm down a little bit. By the way, just to show you, this is my Warner Brothers tie. So there's Tweety and there's Sylvester and the rest of the folks, in case you couldn't tell. This is what you do on your business anniversary. You wear a cartoon tie. Like, remember that thing about not taking yourself too seriously? There you go. So, like I said, you have to take care of yourself. And if you take care of yourself, you try to take care of your health to a degree. Doesn't mean I'm not eating my desserts when I want to eat my desserts. Doesn't mean I'm not having pizza every once in a while. But I balance it with some salads and some other things that are good for me. Not as much as probably my doctor wishes, but I do that. But I'm trying to learn how to relax a little bit more and trying to get better sleep. I have a CPAP, and like I said, I'm trying. And really, if you try, you've got a better chance. Don't go nuts. Don't burn yourself out. You got to take care of yourself. And I'm done. 13 business tips. That's actually a business tip, because if you don't relax and decompress every once in a while, you're going to burn out. So that's a business tip. It's a motivational tip as well. It's a business tip. But there you go. Those are all 13. I'm going to paste all 13 points down below as well. Doesn't mean I don't want you to watch the video, but you just never know. You may want to look at them and debate something. So anyway, this is Mitch Mitchell. Happy anniversary to me. 13 years, and that's my lucky number. Okay, it's not my #1 lucky number, but number 13. Wilt Chamberlain was number 13, and Wilt Chamberlain loved it, and Wilt Chamberlain was my favorite player. So there you go. I hope y'all enjoy this video, and I've enjoyed giving these points. And if you've been following the series, and almost no one has, but there will be another video tomorrow and the day after, and the final video will be next Monday on the 30th. I mean, not forever, but as far as trying to do a video a day for the month of June, ends next Monday. Y'all take care. This has been fun.